Embattled Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot is in damage control mode. Again, she seems to be doing that a lot. This Wednesday after saying,
if you want them controlling your fate and your destiny, then stay home. Then don't vote. But we've got to do better. Right? We have this moment, this opportunity to take control of our own destiny. And that means we've got to get out and vote. No one can stay home.
Lori Lightfoot now saying she misspoke when telling voters who don't vote for her not to vote at all in next Tuesday's municipal election.
Bring our panel back in. Tony, your thoughts on this?
If misspoking is saying what you meant to say and then getting called for it, then yeah, she misspoke. She does that a lot. She should stick to dancing in the snow while there's this tremendous murder rate in Chicago, while there's tremendous crime in Chicago, while there are places in Chicago that people will tell you are no-go zones you don't travel to, you don't walk to anymore. She has not had a good run as mayor. The people are very serious in Chicago about looking for someone else. I don't see yet where there's a runaway from any of these contenders. But clearly, if you're asking, do the people of Chicago have some kind of love or affinity for Mayor Lightfoot, the answer is, oh gosh, no.
Yeah, it also seems we know that Lightfoot trying to avoid the actual issues in her city for, I don't know, comes to mind would be crime, the first thing there. Since taking office, murder is up 82%, robbery is up 33%, and motor vehicle theft is skyrocketing. And then there's education. Just listen to this report. Not a single student is proficient in reading or math at 55 Chicago schools. Check that out. Jesse Jane.
Well, it reminds us of what we've heard about with Baltimore. I believe it was 23 schools, high schools, that don't have anybody meeting the math standard to graduate. I mean, here we go. She actually was saying the quiet part out loud. If you don't want them to control your destiny, meaning you want me to control your destiny of failed schools, high crime. And by the way, I was in the Chicago airport just a few days ago, and there's an announcement that comes over that welcomes you to Chicago by guess who? Lori Lightfoot. She doesn't, and she says it's an award-winning airport, but yet she doesn't mention how the opponent of hers had called it a public toilet because in the evening, all of the homeless are down in the baggage claim area, and it is so rampant. I'm thinking in my head, it was an award-winning airport at one point, but it is no longer, because if I dare to say I had to go claim my bags and I was surrounded by the open urinal that's going on down there and the homelessness, I would feel very unsafe and it wouldn't be a great representation. But essentially, that says it all right now about Chicago.
Yeah, and what's going on there is going on in a lot of big cities, Brian. For instance, Seattle having problems it never had before. And now they're backing off the whole defund police idea because not only homelessness, but crime is rampant.
Well, let me just first say, Lightfoot's comments remind me of Joe Biden when he said that you ain't black if you contemplate voting for Donald Trump. I mean, the fact that these Democrats and these big city Democrats just take these minority voters for granted. They don't expect to have to perform. They can do a poor job and expect to get their support and then act indignant when they don't get it. It's absolutely shocking. I mean, the cities in this country, Seattle, other cities, Philadelphia, are absolutely failing. And we're going to, and these Democrats just don't expect to have to do anything and can run the same tired policies and the same failures and expect voters to turn out. You know, we need to try something different. And I don't want to say I'm optimistic that's going to happen in Chicago, so we'll put me down as hopeful.
Yeah, Tony, your thoughts here again. And, you know, we're talking about this not just as a problem in Chicago and New York City, but also Seattle. But even more so, we hear more and more from people in smaller towns, in suburbs, that this type of rampant crime that we've never seen before is becoming a huge threat. Do you think that that's going to change how people vote moving forward?
Let's change the terminology. Let's not call it rampant crime. Let's call it rampant acceptance. We have come to a place in these cities, large and small, where we accept this, where somehow, well, you need to understand them. Somehow, well, this is what happens when you're not treating people well enough. We argue the homeless problem is a real problem in the nation, something that we can fix. We argue mental health, and it is an issue that needs to be addressed. But this starts with the idea that we somehow have come to accept this as the status quo. Certainly Lori Lightfoot has. Certainly there are multiple mayors and prosecutors across the country, whether you're talking about Alvin Bragg in New York or you're talking about the prosecutor George Gascon in Los Angeles, in my beloved Indianapolis, Ryan Mears. We don't prosecute this crime. We aren't going after this crime. We aren't going to be taking care of this problem. It is the acceptance issue that is the one that we as the voter have failed on. Until we stop accepting this nonsense, we're going to keep getting the same.
Something people are not accepting, it seems, is at the border, Jesse. And now, to the extent that I guess the Biden administration considers it such a threat to them politically that they're trying to re-implement a policy of essentially filing for asylum before you get to the border, which is what Mr. Trump had done when he was president, and getting criticism on the left from the left for doing that, even though it obviously worked under Trump.
Right. You know, I have to agree with Tony where we are talking about acceptance. I understand that the administration is now trying to shift gears, but this is after 2 years. So now we're getting a lot of publicity for Ohio. But the death toll of Americans because of the fentanyl that is flooding over those borders is a daily crisis. Thousands upon thousands of Americans are dying from the drug overdoses and abuses and misidentifying the drugs that they're taking because of those drug cartels that are conducting human trafficking and the abuse that's happening to Americans. I would say there is a level of acceptance because in 2022, Republicans should have swept the House and Senate. If we really want to stop something, then why are we now accepting it as business as usual? 2 years of this abuse and approximately, 5 million undocumented illegals have come over the border in the last 2 years. And Ohio's getting this attention, thank goodness. But the death toll still is stacking up because of that border and the lack of a concrete immigration policy and illegal immigration policy by this administration.
All right, Jesse Jane Duff, Tony Katz, Brian Sychik, thank you all.